Concubine, you're awake. I suddenly opened my eyes to see Yenchio's youthful and vibrant face before me. In her hands was a steaming bowl of pregnancy-preserving medicine, and she looked at me with a beaming smile. His Highness the Crown Prince specifically instructed this morning that since the concubine has been suffering from severe morning sickness lately, the kitchen should prepare a light porridge. Yang Qiu helped me sit up, placing a soft pillow behind my back. The imperial physician said this pregnancy is progressing exceptionally well. It's certain to be a healthy little prince or princess. I stared blankly at my still flat abdomen, my fingers unconsciously drifting to rest upon it. Is this, Jet, my first child, the one who died so young? Looking around, I recognized this as my old bedchamber in the Eastern Palace from those years ago. What day is it today? My voice trembled slightly, replying to the side consort. Today is the 8th day of the 4th month. Yenchio looked at me with confusion. Have you forgotten? The eldest young lady is coming to see you today. Juanin. My heart jolted. It was today, during this very visit, that the Crown Prince fell in love at first sight with my legitimate elder sister, Juanin, altering the course of my life forever. In my past life, I loathed this day, despised Juanin for stealing my husband. But now, to my surprise, my heart is strangely calm. Prepare my attire, I said softly. No need for anything too grand. Simplicity is best. When Juanin arrived, I was admiring the flowers in the backyard. Little sister, she walked over with a beaming smile, her pale pink Ruchuan dress making her skin appear as white as snow. In my past life, I was extremely jealous of her beauty, but now looking back, it feels like a lifetime ago. She was indeed beautiful, breathtakingly so, but what did it matter? Sister, I smiled faintly, not rising to greet her. Juanin seemed slightly taken aback by my indifference but quickly smiled again. I heard the news of your pregnancy, and father and mother were overjoyed. They specifically asked me to bring you some tonics. She signaled the maids behind her to present several exquisite brocade boxes. I had Yenchio accept them, expressed my thanks, but said nothing more. Sister, you don't look well today, Juanin asked with concern. Is it discomfort from the pregnancy? I'm feeling a bit tired, I said indifferently. Since elder sister has come from afar, why not go to the front hall for some tea first? I'll change my clothes and join you shortly. I deliberately stalled for time, lingering in the bedchamber for an extra half hour. In my past life, I had been eager to flaunt the Crown Prince's favor to Dunning, specifically arranging for her to visit before the prince left the estate. And now, I only wished to avoid this fateful encounter, but fate had other plans. When I leisurely walked into the front hall, the Crown Prince was already seated there, chatting happily with Dunning. The way he looked at her, I recognized that familiar mix of awe and infatuation. Your Highness, I greeted calmly, bowing. Nianqing, you're here. The Crown Prince smiled and beckoned to me. Your sister is truly talented and beautiful. Just now when we were discussing poetry, her insights were quite extraordinary. Juanin lowered her head shyly. Your Highness flatters me too much. I watched this scene quietly, my heart as calm as still water. In my past life, my heart would have been wrenched with pain at this moment, but now, I only find it laughable. Men, always chasing after what they cannot have. Elder sister is truly brilliant. I smiled faintly and said, this humble one is somewhat weary and shall take my leave first. Your Highness and elder sister may continue your conversation at leisure. The Crown Prince was somewhat surprised by my attitude, but was quickly drawn back to Juanin's attention. I turned and left without a trace of reluctance. After that day, the Crown Prince visited the Shun residence more and more frequently. I focused on nurturing my pregnancy, no longer inquiring about his whereabouts. Occasionally when he came to my courtyard, I would only serve him as a matter of routine, no longer going out of my way to please him as I did in my past life. Concubine. Why aren't you the least bit anxious? Yenchio said with deep concern. His Highness the Crown Prince hasn't visited our courtyard for 5 consecutive days. I heard that the eldest young lady, Yenchio, I interrupted her, go fetch the little garment I was embroidering. The sunlight is good today, and I want to finish it in the courtyard. I was in no hurry, for I knew the ending. Dun Ning would enter the Eastern Palace and become the Crown Princess. And I would forever live in her shadow. In my past life, I exhausted every means to compete for favor with her, only to end up harming both others and myself. In this life, I have decided to let go. 3 months later, the crown prince indeed sought the emperor's decree to marry Juanin as his principal consort. On the day the imperial edict was issued, he unexpectedly visited my courtyard, Nianqing. He spoke somewhat awkwardly. You know, Dunning, I understand, I said calmly. Sister is both talented and beautiful. It's only right that she becomes the crown princess. I will know my place and not cause any trouble for your highness. The crown prince seemed taken aback by my reasonableness. After a moment of silence, gratitude flickered in his eyes. You've always been sensible, sensible. I've heard these 2 words countless times in my past life. A queen should be sensible, a wife should be sensible, a woman should be sensible. But what did being sensible bring me? Nothing but a withered corpse in the cold palace. Your highness, this humble wife has a request, I said, lifting my gaze to meet his. Go ahead. I wish to move to the Chiwu courtyard in the west to rest during my pregnancy. It's quieter there. The crown prince hesitated. It's rather remote, and you're with child. The imperial physician said my pregnancy is stable. There's no harm, I insisted. Besides, since my sister entered the Eastern Palace, there have been many affairs in the household. I'd like to avoid such disturbances. In the end, he agreed. 3 days later, I moved to Chiwu courtyard with Yanxiu and a few close maids. The place was indeed remote, but it had the advantage of being quiet. I could stay away from trouble and peacefully await the birth of my child. Jet was born on a rainy night. When Jet's loud cry rang out, tears streamed down my face. In my past life, he died young due to harem conflicts, becoming a lifelong pain for me. In this life, I vow to protect him at all costs. Consort, it's a healthy little prince. The midwife cheerfully presented the swaddled baby to me. I carefully took him into my arms, gazing at the rosy little face in my embrace, my heart overflowing with tenderness. This is my flesh and blood. The most important person in my life now. The crown prince came to see us mother and child only after 3 days. His face was full of joy as he held Jet, unable to put him down. Nianqing, you've borne me a fine son, he said happily. The emperor was also delighted upon hearing the news and bestowed the name Jet. I smiled weakly. Thank you, your highness. Duaning is also very pleased and has specially prepared some tonics for you, he said casually. His eyes still fixed on the baby in his arms. I sneered inwardly. Of course Duaning was pleased. She probably wished I would stay in the Chiwu courtyard forever and not disturb her and the crown prince's loving life. In my past life, I harbored deep hatred for this. But now I couldn't ask for anything more, your highness. I have an impertinent request to make, I said softly. Go ahead. I wish to continue living in Chiwu courtyard. The tranquil environment here is suitable for Jet's growth. Moreover, I hesitated for a moment. With elder sister just entering the residence, I don't want to disturb your newlywed life. The crown prince looked at me in surprise, a trace of guilt flashing in his eyes. Nianqing, you're always so considerate. Very well. I'll assign more attendants to care for you and our child. After he left, Yanxiu couldn't help but ask, Concubine, why did you voluntarily choose to stay in such a remote place, now that the eldest miss has become the crown princess? You should what? I interrupted her, should compete for favor, should fight to the death. Yanxiu, look at the chrysanthemums in this garden. How quietly and freely they bloom. Why must one insist on being that showy peony, attracting bees and butterflies, only to end up trampled into the mud? Yanxiu looked at me with partial understanding and said no more. The year the crown prince ascended the throne, Jet was already 6 years old, just like in my previous life. Dunning was named empress, while I received the title of virtuous consort. Your highness, Consort Li has once again spoken disrespectfully to Her Majesty the Empress in the Imperial Garden, Yan Shuang reported. I was teaching Jet how to write and didn't even look up as I said, it has nothing to do with us. But Consort Li, relying on her father General Pei's military achievements, has grown increasingly arrogant. Today she even mocked the Empress for being old and faded. Yan Shuang. I set down the brush. Go check if the pear soup I've been stewing for Jet in the small kitchen is ready. Yan Shuang retreated resentfully. Jet lifted his little face to look at me. Mother, why does Consort Li always bully Auntie the Empress? I patted his head. Because they both like your father, the Emperor, and want to win his favor. What about you, Mother? Don't you like father? I smiled. Mother has Jet, and that's enough. This is the truth, reborn into this life. I've seen through the emptiness of an emperor's love. Rather than exhausting myself vying for favor, I'd rather focus on raising my child well. After Jet's death in my previous life, I became even more ruthless and unhinged. In this life, all I want is for him to grow up safe and sound, Your Highness. The Emperor is coming this way, Yan Shuang rushed in again to announce. I frowned slightly. Since entering the palace, I have deliberately avoided the Emperor. And he has rarely visited my Jiaohua palace. Why has he suddenly come today? Before I could think further, the Emperor had already entered. I quickly led Jet to bow in greeting. Rise, he said. The Emperor's voice was even colder than I remembered. I passed by Jiaohua Palace and realized it's been a long time since I last saw Jet. I motioned for Jet to step forward and pay his respects. The Emperor looked at his son, a rare trace of warmth appearing in his eyes. How are your studies progressing? Reporting to Imperial Father, your son is currently studying the Analects of Confucius. Jet replied obediently. The Emperor nodded in satisfaction and looked at me. Virtuous consort, your guidance is commendable. Your Majesty flatters me. I replied humbly with my head lowered. The Emperor nodded and glanced around. Your palace is indeed elegant in its simplicity. The arrangement of Jiaohua Palace was indeed minimalistic. Neither as extravagant as the consort Li's palace, nor as opulent as the Empress's. It was simply adorned with plain porcelain and a screen I had embroidered myself. I prefer tranquility, I replied softly. The Emperor stared at me for a long moment before suddenly asking, Noble consort, do you resent me? My heart skipped a beat. I wouldn't dare. Is it that you dare not, or that you do not hate? He pressed further. Since entering the palace, you've avoided me like the plague. Unless I seek you out first, you never set foot in the hall of diligent governance. Back in the prince's residence, you would still smile at me. There was a note in his voice I couldn't quite decipher. Now that we're in the palace, we've grown distant instead. I lowered my gaze and remained silent. Should I say it's because I've seen through your fickleness and indifference, or should I tell you that your favor is nothing but a fleeting illusion? Your Majesty, I merely thought. With the weight of state affairs upon you, you shouldn't be troubled by trivial matters of the inner palace. I forced out an excuse. The Emperor let out a cold laugh. What a lofty and righteous reason. Virtuous consort, I remember you weren't like this before. That's because back then, I was still foolish enough to believe in love. I said silently in my heart, people change, Your Majesty. I raised my head and met his gaze directly. All I wish for now is to raise Jet well and be a dutiful consort. The Emperor's expression was inscrutable. He reached out as if to touch my face but stopped mid-air, ultimately withdrawing his hand. Enough. He stood up and said, I'll come to see Jet another day, tomorrow. The Empress is hosting a chrysanthemum viewing banquet. You should come too. Don't always stay cooped up in the palace. Your servant obeys the decree. After he left, I let out a long sigh of relief. Yan Shuang asked quietly, Your Highness, it seems, the Emperor cares about you a great deal. I shook my head. The Emperor's heart is unfathomable. What he values today, he may cast aside like worn-out shoes tomorrow. There's no need to take it to heart. In this life, I only wish to be an onlooker. On the day of the chrysanthemum banquet, I deliberately chose a simple lilac palace dress, with just 2 velvet flowers and a silver hairpin adorning my bun. It was neither shabby nor would it outshine the Empress and consort Li. Mother, you look so beautiful today, Jet said, tilting his little face up. I crouched down to look at him. Jet, remember, no matter what you see at today's banquet, tell Mother later, don't speak out of turn at the scene. He nodded obediently. I understand, just as Mother said. Gossip is constant, but ignoring it makes it vanish. I patted his head with relief. In my past life, I was so engrossed in the pursuit of power that I never properly taught Jet about the treachery of human hearts. In this life, I want to keep him away from these filthy struggles and let him become a wise and open-minded person. Yang Shuang hurried in. Your Highness, it's getting late, it's time to set off. I held Jet's hand and walked out of Jiaohua Palace. The autumn sunlight gently bathed the palace walls, making the glazed tiles shimmer brilliantly. This imperial city is so beautiful, yet so cruel. The banquet had already been set up in the imperial garden. The Empress sat gracefully in the host's seat, her majestic crimson phoenix robe accentuating her noble elegance. Consort Li sat to her lower right, dressed in a dazzling rose-red palace gown, adorned with exquisite hair ornaments, her beauty beyond compare. "Your humble servant pays respects to Her Majesty the Empress," I said, leading Jet in a proper and respectful bow. Juanin's face showed a sincere smile as she pointed to the seat to her lower left. "Sister, you're here, sit here, so we sisters can have a good chat." Hearing this, I stood up and led Jet to take a seat. Consort Li snorted coldly. "Her Majesty the Queen treats Consort Xian with such warmth and closeness," Juanin said gently. "Consort Xian is my own younger sister and has borne His Majesty's eldest son. Naturally, she deserves more care and attention. What does being the eldest son matter?" Consort Li gently fanned herself with a round fan, her words laced with meaning. "He's not the legitimate heir, after all." I lowered my head to sip tea, finding it all rather absurd. "Consort Li, do you not know that the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate heirs stems from propriety, not birth? If we judge nobility by legitimacy, wouldn't we be inviting the entire court to mock the imperial family? What's the point of fighting over such empty titles? In the end, we all return to the same handful of dust." Seeing my indifferent expression, Consort Li changed the subject resentfully. "Your Majesty, I heard the Ministry of Rights is already preparing for the imperial consort selection. In just over a month, the palace will surely become lively. His Majesty has been on the throne for 3 years. It is indeed time to enrich the imperial harem." Consort Li is quite well informed. Consort Li parted her crimson lips slightly. "I was thinking, with a few more princes and princesses to bring joy to the imperial family, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager would surely be delighted." She deliberately paused. Just like how exceptionally bright and clever the first prince is, I couldn't help but laugh instead of getting angry. This palace had nearly forgotten to congratulate Consort Li. "I heard your palace recently acquired a statue of the child-giving Guanyin. I shall visit someday to offer incense. After all, in this harem, who can conceive the imperial heir still depends on the Bodhisattva's blessing." Consort Li's face instantly paled by 3 shades, momentarily at a loss for a retort, and could only shoot me a resentful glare. The Emperor's triennial selection ceremony arrived slightly earlier than in my previous life. Seated below the Empress, I swept my gaze over the assembled candidates standing in the hall, most aged 15 or 16, tender as flower buds in their youthful freshness. A familiar name suddenly reached my ears. The daughter of Taichang Shaoqing Yang Huarian, Yang Shu, aged 15. I abruptly looked up, my gaze fixed on the figure gracefully bowing in the center of the hall. Even though I had mentally prepared myself, seeing Yang Shu again still sent a shock through my heart. She was dressed in a light green palace gown, her features as delicate as a painting, with an ethereal and refined aura, exactly like Duaning in her youth. The hall fell silent in an instant. I stole a glance at the Emperor and saw him staring intently at Yang Shu, so absorbed that he didn't even notice his teacup tilting. Meanwhile, Duaning's face had turned deathly pale, her fingers gripping the armrest tightly. "The candidate is retained," bestowed with a sachet. The eunuch's shrill voice rang out sharply. Yang Shu respectfully expressed her gratitude and withdrew. As she stepped back, she inadvertently raised her head, her gaze meeting mine. A flicker of confusion passed through her eyes before they quickly regained their calm. I swiftly averted my gaze, sighing inwardly, "In this lifetime, we have finally met." Yang Shu. Yang Shu was conferred the title of Graceful Beauty and granted residence in the Shuyu Pavilion. This position is higher than in her previous life, and the residence is even more luxurious, showing the Emperor's regard for her. The Empress claimed illness and excused everyone from morning greetings. On my way to Fu Ning Palace to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, I saw from afar a group of eunuchs and palace maids carrying various rewards heading towards Shu Yuzhai. Led by none other than Li Dequan, the Emperor's personal attendant. "Your Highness, should we avoid them?" Yen Shuang whispered. I shook my head. "No need, let's go our own way." As I turned a corner in the corridor, I unexpectedly encountered Consort Li. Today, she was dressed with extraordinary splendor, her hair adorned with glittering jewels that sparkled in the sunlight, yet they couldn't conceal the gloom in her eyes. "Oh, isn't this virtuous consort?" Consort Li feigned a smile and said, "What, are you also in a hurry to fawn over the newly favored Lady Wn?" I replied calmly, "You jest, Consort Li, I've just returned from paying respects to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager truly dotes on you, Consort Li snorted coldly, but I advise you not to get too complacent. Who Yang Shu resembles. You know it well. Her Majesty the Empress must be losing sleep over it now. As her younger half-sister, shouldn't you go and console her? She deliberately emphasized the words younger half-sister. I sneered inwardly. Consort Li was clearly trying to provoke me into dealing with Yang Shu so she could reap the benefits. Her Majesty the Empress has the Emperor's concern. There's no need for me to interfere, I said lightly. But Consort Li hasn't been looking well lately. Should we summon the Imperial physician for her? Consort Li's face darkened. No need for your concern. With that, she turned and stormed off in a huff. Yen Shuang looked at me worriedly. Your Highness, Consort Li seems. Don't bother, I interrupted her. Let's return to the palace. Jet should be getting out of school soon. In the following days, the dynamics of the imperial harem began to shift subtly. The emperor summoned Yang Shu almost daily, and lavish gifts flowed ceaselessly into the Shuyu pavilion. The queen's illness has been recurring persistently, showing no signs of improvement. Meanwhile, Consort Li frequently accidentally encounters the emperor in the imperial garden. Though with little effect, as for me, I continue to live a secluded life, focusing on teaching Jet. Occasionally, I pay respects to the Empress Dowager, listening to her updates about the palace affairs. During the Dragon Boat Festival, the palace held a grand banquet in celebration. This was Yang Shu's first formal attendance at a grand banquet since entering the palace, and everyone was eager to see how the new favorite would perform. The banquet was set up around the pavilion in the Imperial Garden. I arrived slightly early and chose an inconspicuous seat. The Empress, looking pale, sat in the main seat, forcing herself to respond to the greetings of the concubines. Consort Li sat to her lower right, her eyes constantly darting toward the entrance. Before long, a eunuch announced in a shrill voice, His Majesty has arrived, and so has Lady Wn. Everyone quickly stood up to pay their respects. The emperor entered, holding Yang Shu's hand, his face displaying a rare expression of joy. Yang Shu was dressed in a pale yellow palace gown, with only a few pearl flowers adorning her hair, yet they accentuated her snow-white skin, making her radiantly beautiful beyond compare. All may rise. The emperor waved his hand and personally assisted Yang Shu to her seat, placing her right next to Consort Li. Consort Li's face instantly turned ashen, her handkerchief nearly torn to shreds in her grip. Duan Yang managed to maintain a forced smile, but the disappointment in her eyes was impossible to conceal. As the banquet commenced, the dancers presented their meticulously rehearsed performance. Amid the clinking of cups, Consort Li suddenly rose to her feet. Your Majesty, she said, this humble consort has recently learned a new melody and wishes to present it to you and our sisters. The emperor nodded absent-mindedly, approved. Consort Li ordered someone to fetch the guqin and played a piece titled Phoenix Seeks Phoenix. To be fair, her skill with the instrument was indeed remarkable, but playing this piece that expressed admiration at this moment was rather too blatant. When the music ended, the emperor merely remarked indifferently, not bad, before turning to whisper and laugh quietly with Yang Shu. Consort Li's smile froze on her face, a flash of venom flickering in her eyes. Lady Wn. She suddenly raised her voice. I've heard that my sister is talented in both arts. I wonder if you could also grace us with a performance. Yang Shu replied modestly, this concubine is of shallow talent and dares not show off before Her Highness Consort Li. Why must my sister be so modest? Consort Li pressed on relentlessly. His Majesty often praises my sister for excelling in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Today, on this festive occasion, it would be the perfect time to let our sisters broaden their horizons. I can see that this is Consort Li's trap. If Yang Shu refuses, she would appear ungrateful. If she agrees, she would inevitably be compared to Consort Li. Yang Shu looked at the emperor, who gave a slight nod. She had no choice but to rise and say, then this concubine shall make a fool of herself. To everyone's surprise, Yang Shu did not choose the zither but instead asked for a jade flute to be brought to her. As the sound of the xiao rose, the entire audience was astonished. I had never heard such a melody before. Clear, melodious, and soul-stirring, evoking both sorrow and longing, captivating all who listened. The emperor's eyes grew brighter with each note. until he could no longer contain his admiration and began to clap in rhythm. Marvelous, such music belongs only in the heavens. How rare it is to hear it in the mortal world. Yang Shu set down her jade xiao and smiled shyly. This is a piece I composed myself, titled Longing's Prelude. I fear I have embarrassed myself. You are too modest, my beloved consort, the emperor said affectionately. Li Dequan, bestow the pair of mutton-fat jade bracelets from my collection upon Lady Wn. Consort Li's expression had turned extremely unpleasant. She abruptly stood up. Your Majesty, this concubine is feeling unwell and must take her leave. Without waiting for the emperor's response, she stormed off in anger. The atmosphere at the banquet instantly became awkward. Dunning forced herself to muster a few polite words, and only then did the banquet manage to continue. But I noticed her gaze frequently lingering on Yang Shu, her eyes filled with complex, indecipherable emotions. After returning to the palace, Yang Shu couldn't help but say, Your Highness, today Consort Li truly brought shame upon herself. I replied indifferently, the more she acts this way, the more the emperor will grow weary of her. Sure enough, within a few days, news arrived that Consort Li had been punished with a month of confinement for improper conduct before the emperor. As summer faded into autumn, Duanin's illness grew increasingly severe. When the Empress Dowager summoned me for a conversation, she mentioned with deep concern, Duanin has been absent-minded these days. The imperial physician says it's due to pent-up sorrow. The emperor hasn't visited her in a long time. I remained silent. In my past life, I would have rejoiced at Duanin's fall from favor, but now, watching her spiral toward collapse, I felt an unexpected twinge of pity. The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful glance. Go see her, and try to console her. Which woman in the imperial harem hasn't experienced the loss of favor? Inside Fengyi Palace, Duanin was so haggard I could barely recognize her. The once radiant empress was now gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes. You've come, sister, she forced a faint smile. Have a seat. I bowed and sat by her bedside. Sister, have you been feeling better these days? Better? How could I be better? Dunning suddenly became agitated. The emperor hasn't set foot in Fengyi Palace for 2 months. His eyes are only for that Yang Sh, that counterfeit. I signaled the palace maids to withdraw, then said softly, Sister, be careful with your words. What am I afraid of? Duanin smiled bitterly. What difference is there now between Fengyi Palace and the Cold Palace? Nianqing, do you know, yesterday was my birthday, and the emperor didn't even send a word, only having Li Dequan deliver the usual routine gifts. Her tears rolled down. I gave everything for him, and this is how he treats me. I didn't know how to comfort her. In her previous life, Duchess Duaning maintained her dignity and composure as the empress until her death. Yet now, she was breaking down in tears before me. Was it because, without my schemes, she found the reality of losing favor even harder to bear? I carefully chose my words. His Majesty is merely momentarily enchanted by novelty. In the end, he will realize who truly cares for him. Duaning shook her head, her gaze growing increasingly hollow. No, I know His Majesty. Once his heart changes, he will never look back. Suddenly, she grasped my hand. Nianqing, do me a favor, elder sister. Please speak, I want to see Yang Shu. Dunning's voice was so low it was almost inaudible. Alone. My heart skipped a beat. What does elder sister intend to do? Don't worry, I won't harm her. Duaning smiled bitterly. I just wanted to see what's so special about the woman who replaced me. I hesitated. In my past life, Duaning and Yang Shu had almost no direct interaction. What consequences might this meeting bring now? After leaving Fengyi Palace, I went straight to Shu Zhai. Yang Shu was quite surprised to see me and quickly rose to greet me. How could the noble consort grace us with her presence in person? It should be this concubine paying respects to you. I observed her closely. In just a few months, Yang Shu had shed the naivety she had when first entering the palace, her speech and demeanor now exuding a newfound composure and confidence. You flatter me. Fair Lady Wn, I replied indifferently. This consort comes today on behalf of Her Majesty the Empress to deliver a message. Hearing the words Empress, Yang Shu's eyes flickered slightly. Your Highness, please speak. Her Majesty the Empress wishes to meet you alone, tomorrow at noon. In the rear garden of Fengyi Palace, Yang Shu frowned slightly. This isn't proper, is it? Indeed, it isn't proper. I looked straight into her eyes and said, "So whether to go or not is entirely up to Lady WN herself." With that, I turned and left, giving her no chance to ask further. I had done all I could, the rest was up to their own fate. The next day, when Jet returned from school, I was trimming a pot of chrysanthemums. "Mother," he rushed in excitedly, "your son has studied Mencius today, and Grand Tutor Jong praised me for understanding it well." I put down the scissors and wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "Speak slowly, no need to hurry. Mother, your son has a question." Jet suddenly lowered his voice. "Why doesn't father like the Empress anymore? Wasn't she his most beloved woman?" My heart skipped a beat. "Who told you this? Everyone in the palace is talking about it." Jet blinked his big eyes. "They say Lady WN resembles mother when she was young, which is why father favors her so much." I pulled him to sit down. "Jet, remember mother's words, in the harem. Love is the most unreliable thing. Today's favor may be tomorrow's neglect. Such is the norm. What matters is holding fast to your true self, unmoved by external things." Jet nodded with partial understanding. "Like mother consort does." I smiled. "Yes, just like mother consort does." Then, what if one day Father Emperor doesn't like me anymore either? My heart ached as I pulled him into my arms. "That won't happen, you're his eldest son. He'll always care for you, and besides..." I cupped his little face in my hands. "No matter what happens, mother will always be by your side." Jet leaned against me and suddenly said, "Mother, when I grow up, I will protect you and not let anyone bully you." My eyes instantly welled up with tears. The child who had left me in my past life was now healthy and lively in my arms, vowing to protect me. This was the greatest blessing heaven could bestow upon me. "Good child," I kissed his forehead, "but for now, let your mother protect you." Just as we were speaking, Yen Shuang hurried in. "Your Highness, something has happened at Fengyi Palace." When I arrived at Fengyi Palace, the scene was in complete chaos. Juanin fainted on the stone table in the garden, and Yangshu was anxiously pressing her philtrum, while several palace maids stood by helplessly. "What happened?" I hurried forward. Upon seeing me, Yangshu looked as if she had found a savior. "Noble consort, the Empress suddenly fainted, and this concubine..." "Enough. Summon the imperial physician first," I interrupted her, signaling Yen Shuang to help carry Juanin into the inner chamber. Yang Shu hesitated for a moment. "Should this concubine withdraw first?" I gave her a deep look. "What do you think?" She bit her lip. "This concubine understands. Today." This concubine was never at the Phoenix Palace. As clever as Yang Shu, she naturally understood the stakes involved. If it were known that the Empress had fainted while summoning the favored concubine, who could predict what kind of turmoil would ensue? After Yang Shu hurriedly left, the imperial physician arrived. The diagnosis revealed that the Empress had long been burdened with sorrow, coupled with an irregular diet, leading to a deficiency of both qi and blood, requiring restful recuperation. I sent someone to report to the Hall of Diligent Governance, only to be informed that the Emperor was in discussions with his ministers and had no time to come. He merely sent word for the Empress to rest well, with the imperial physician on standby at all times. When Dunning woke, it was already dusk. Seeing me keeping vigil by her bedside, a flicker of disappointment passed through her eyes. "He didn't come, did he?" she asked weakly. I didn't answer, just helped her sit up and handed her a bowl of ginseng soup. "Sister, drink some ginseng soup to refresh yourself first." Juanin mechanically took a few sips, then suddenly asked, "Yangshu, what did she say to you?" "Nothing much," I said softly. "She had just arrived when you fainted." "Sister," Juanin smiled bitterly, "you know what? She truly is special, not just because she resembles my younger self. She's intelligent, perceptive, and knows how to adapt to circumstances. Most importantly, when she speaks of the Emperor, there's admiration and infatuation in her eyes. But not the kind of obsessive madness I have." I listened quietly, my heart filled with countless emotions. Juanin had always maintained the dignity of an empress in public, yet here she was, dissecting her own failures before me. "Sister, you should rest now." I tucked the blanket around her and said, "Some things simply cannot be forced." Juanin suddenly grabbed my hand. "Nianqing, you've changed. Back in the Eastern Palace, your eyes and heart were filled with the Emperor. But now, you look at all this as if watching a play." My heart trembled. I never thought the person who understood me best would be the one I once hated most. "People change," I replied softly. After the double ninth festival, the weather gradually turned colder. I was in the study teaching jet calligraphy when Yan Shuang hurried in to announce, "Your Highness, Lady WN requests an audience." My brush paused slightly. It had been over half a year since Yang Shu entered the palace, and this was the first time she had actively sought an audience at Jiaohua Hall. "Ask her to wait in the main hall." I set down the brush. "Jet, practice on your own for now." In the main hall, Yang Shu was admiring a landscape painting hanging on the wall. Hearing footsteps, she turned and bowed. "This concubine presumes to disturb. I beg noble consort's forgiveness." "You are too polite, Lady WN." I gestured for her to sit. "May I ask what brings you here today?" After the palace maid served tea and snacks and withdrew, Yang Shu took a delicate sip before speaking. "Actually, this concubine came to express gratitude. Gratitude, that day at Fengyi Palace. If your highness hadn't arrived in time, this concubine might have." She trailed off, a flicker of lingering fear flashing through her eyes. I smiled faintly. "You overstate the matter, Lady WN. Her Majesty the Empress was merely momentarily indisposed. It had nothing to do with you." Yang Shu gave me a deep look. "Your Highness is indeed as benevolent as the rumors say. However," she lowered her voice, "this concubine always felt that your Highness seemed to have known what would happen all along." My heart trembled slightly. Yang Shu was indeed clever and perceptive. "It was merely a coincidence," I said lightly. "But Lady WN, meeting the Empress in private is truly reckless." Yang Shu smiled bitterly. "How could I not know? But when Her Majesty the Empress extends an invitation, I dare not refuse." She hesitated for a moment. "Your Highness, there is something I wish to request. Speak freely." Since entering the palace, I have always heard that noble consort Xian is of a serene disposition and avoids conflicts. Yang Shu said sincerely, "In this imperial harem, your humble concubine treads on thin ice. I wish to seek some guidance from your highness." I examined the exceptionally intelligent woman before me. In my past life, she was arguably my greatest rival. We fought to the death, and now, she comes to me for advice. "You overestimate this consort, Lady WN." I shook my head slowly. "This consort is merely an idle person who knows little of the world. What guidance could I possibly offer you?" Yang Shu seemed to have anticipated my refusal. "Your Highness is too modest. Although I have not been in the palace for long, I can see that your Highness is deeply favored by the Empress Dowager, and even His Majesty holds you in special regard. This is no coincidence." I smiled without responding. She continued, "I dare not presume to seek your Highness's protection, but I only hope that in times of danger, I might receive a word of warning from you." With things put so plainly, refusing further would seem deliberate. After a moment of contemplation, I replied, "Since Lady WN is so sincere, I shall say this. Beware of Consort Li." Yang Shu bowed gratefully. "I understand. Thank you, Your Highness." As she rose to take her leave, she suddenly noticed a copy of *Zhuangzi* on the table and asked curiously, "Your Highness reads *Zhuangzi* too?" "Occasionally," I replied casually. "When the springs dry up, the fish are left stranded on the land, gasping for moisture and spitting dampness to each other. Better to forget each other in the rivers and lakes." Quite thought-provoking. Yang Shu seemed lost in thought. This concubine believes that, since they are already stranded on land, helping each other is better than forgetting. I was slightly taken aback, not expecting her to interpret it that way. "Perhaps," I said lightly, "Yan Shuang, escort Lady WN back." In mid-October, the Emperor held an archery and riding competition for the princes in the Imperial Garden. Jet is 10 years old, and under my deliberate training, his skills in horseback riding and archery have surpassed those of the other princes. I don't expect him to claim that position, only hope that no matter what happens in the future, he can protect himself. "Mother, I'm nervous," Jet whispered, holding my hand before setting off. I knelt down to adjust his collar. "Remember what I told you. Just do your best. Don't worry about winning or losing." At the competition venue, the princes took their turns one by one. The third prince, born to the late consort Hui, was already 9 years old and displayed exceptional archery skills. The fourth prince, born to consort Liu, though only 6, also performed admirably with the assistance of his attendants. When it was Jet's turn, his first arrow missed the mark, drawing muffled laughter from the crowd. I nervously clenched my handkerchief. only to see Jet take a deep breath and nock another arrow, the third arrow, the fourth arrow. Jet's performance improved with each shot, earning thunderous applause from the audience. Good, the Emperor, rarely showing a smile, remarked, truly worthy of being my son. Li Dequan, bestow my small golden bow upon the eldest prince. Jet ran over excitedly. Mother, did you see? I won. I patted his head. Mother saw it. Jet, you were amazing. Father praised me. His eyes sparkled. He said I was just like him when he was little. My heart warmed. In this lifetime, at least they had more time together as father and son. Allowing Jet to experience more paternal love, noble consort, the Emperor had unknowingly walked to my side. Jet's horsemanship and archery, you've put in great effort. I curtsied and replied, Your Majesty, it is the imperial tutors who have taught him well. This humble consort merely offered occasional supervision, no need for modesty. The Emperor looked at Jet in the distance, who was proudly showing off his small golden bow to the eunuchs. This child is naturally gifted and diligent. He will surely achieve great things in the future. I lowered my head to conceal the complex emotions in my eyes. Your Majesty flatters me too much. I have decided, the Emperor suddenly said, starting tomorrow, have Jet come to the Hall of Diligent Governance for an hour each day after his studies. I will personally instruct him in state affairs. My heart skipped a beat. This was something that had never happened in my past life. As the eldest son, if Jet could receive the Emperor's personal guidance, in the future, this concubine, thanks Your Majesty on behalf of Jet for this grace, I said calmly, suppressing the excitement in my heart. The Emperor gave me a meaningful look. Virtuous consort, you are always so restrained. With that, he turned and left, leaving me standing there with a heart full of turmoil. When the first snow of November fell, Juanin sent someone to summon me to Fengyi Palace. I had thought she was feeling unwell again, but upon entering, I was surprised to see her in good spirits, arranging flowers in the warm chamber. Sister, you're here, she smiled and beckoned me over. Come quickly and try the Nula tribute Longjing tea. I bowed and sat down across from her. Sister, you look particularly radiant today, having resolved some matters. Naturally I feel better. Juanin personally poured tea for me. Speaking of which, I must thank you, little sister, for your guidance that day. I was somewhat surprised. Your servant did not say anything. Precisely because you said nothing. Dun Ning's gaze was clear and calm. That day when I woke up and saw you by my bedside, there was no pity in your eyes, no mockery, just tranquility. In that moment, I suddenly understood that one could live like this even in the imperial harem. I silently sipped my tea, unsure how to respond. These days I've been thinking a lot. Dunning continued, after marrying the Emperor, I tied everything about myself to him. When he loved me, I felt like the happiest person in the world. When he grew distant, it was as if I had fallen into hell. She gently stroked a white chrysanthemum. Until I saw you, Niank, do you know? I actually started to envy you. Envy me. I nearly choked on my tea. I envy your carefree spirit, Juanin said sincerely. You have your own world. Jet, poetry and books, flowers and plants, all these can bring you joy. I set down the teacup, my heart filled with mixed emotions. In my past life, Juanin remained my enemy until death, yet now, she actually sees me as a role model. I said softly, you flatter me, sister. Duaning shook her head, no need for modesty. I invited you here today to tell you that I've decided to reclaim the dignity befitting an empress. No longer will I wallow in self-pity over the Emperor's neglect, nor envy Yangshu. I want to learn to live as you do. As I looked into her resolute eyes, I felt a sudden surge of emotion. Perhaps Duaning had always been this clear-sighted at heart, and it was the intrigues of the palace that had warped her true nature. Sister, it is truly a blessing for the imperial harem that you think this way, I said sincerely. Duaning smiled. By the way, I heard Jet has been frequenting the Hall of Diligent Governance lately. Yes, His Majesty personally instructs him in state affairs. This is a good thing. Dunning nodded. Jet is intelligent and kind-hearted. He will surely achieve great things in the future. Rest assured, I will do everything in my power to protect him. My eyes grew slightly moist. This concubine. Thanks, elder sister, for your deep affection. On the 15th day of the first lunar month, the Lantern Festival, I had just returned from paying respects to the Empress Dowager when Yan Shuang came to report, Your Highness, Lady WN has arrived and brought many gifts. I frowned slightly. Since the last incident, Yenshu's visits to Jiaohua Palace had noticeably increased, each time with a different pretext, sometimes to discuss poetry and literature, other times to present embroidery patterns. Today, on the Lantern Festival, she had prepared especially lavish gifts. "Invite her to the warm pavilion," I said, removing my cloak and changing into a simple everyday dress. "I pay my respects to the noble consort." Yang Shu curtsied with a smile as bright as the spring sun. "On this Lantern Festival, I've come especially to greet you, Your Highness. You're too kind, fair Lady WN." I gestured for her to sit. "Why aren't you preparing the feast in your own palace on such a grand festival day?" Yang Shu had a maid present a brocade box. This concubine personally made some yuanxiao, thinking Her Highness might enjoy them. She opened the box to reveal 6 crystal-clear glutinous rice balls. "This is a Jiangnan recipe. Thin wrappers with generous fillings, made with lotus root starch for the dough so they're not cloying." I was somewhat surprised. In my past life, I had also tasted these yuanxiao, which Yang Shu had specially prepared for the emperor to try. I hadn't expected her to offer them to me first in this lifetime. "You've put much thought into this, noble Lady WN. I had Yen Shuang accept it. Jet will surely like it." "How has the eldest prince been lately?" Yang Shu asked with concern. "I heard the emperor often summons him to the hall of diligent governance." I picked up the teacup, using the opportunity to observe her expression. "He's doing fine, just some basic studies." Yang Shu nodded gently. "The eldest prince is exceptionally intelligent and will surely achieve great things in the future." She paused, then suddenly lowered her voice. "Your Highness, this concubine has come today with a request to make." Finally, we were getting to the main point. I set down my teacup. "Speak freely." "This concubine has been in the palace for nearly a year. Though favored by His Majesty, life in the harem remains as precarious as walking on thin ice." Yang Shu looked directly into my eyes. "I wish to seek Your Highness's protection." I raised an eyebrow. "With the Emperor's favor so strong upon you now, why would you need my protection? Imperial favor flows like water. Here today, gone tomorrow." Yang Shu smiled bitterly. "This concubine knows all too well that without a foundation, no amount of favor can build more than a castle in the air." She took a deep breath. "Your Highness has earned the trust of the Empress Dowager and has the eldest prince by your side. If you could offer me guidance, I would be endlessly grateful." I did not answer immediately. In her past life, Yang Shu had relied on her own intelligence to secure her place in the imperial harem, never bowing to anyone. Yet in this life, she was actively seeking my protection. "What do you want?" I asked directly. "An ally." Yang Shu was equally direct. "In this imperial harem, I need someone I can trust, and Your Highness needs someone who can speak before the emperor. We each have our own needs." I quietly observed her for a moment before suddenly smiling. "Lady WN is indeed clever. However, why do you think this consort needs you? Because of the crown prince?" Yang Shu answered without hesitation. "Your Highness lives in seclusion and avoids conflicts, but as the crown prince grows older, he will inevitably be drawn into the struggle for succession. Though I may lack talent, I still hold some influence to speak before the emperor." My heart trembled. She saw through it all so clearly. Indeed, I could disregard favor and status, but Jet's future, I couldn't afford to ignore. "You have quite the nerve," I said coldly. Daring to speak recklessly about the matter of succession, Yang Shu remained unflustered. "This concubine wouldn't dare. It's merely preparing for a rainy day." She took out a small booklet from her sleeve. "This is a compilation of historical records regarding the establishment of heirs from previous dynasties that I have organized. It might be of use to Your Highness." I took the booklet and flipped through a few pages casually, inwardly startled. It meticulously documented the struggles for succession among the princes of previous dynasties, as well as how the current emperor ultimately emerged victorious. The level of detail and the depth of analysis were such that they could not have been achieved overnight. "How long have you been preparing this?" Yang Shu smiled. "Since the day I entered the palace, I have a habit of understanding the rules before placing my bets." I closed the booklet and looked at her deeply. "What do you want in return?" "Your Highness's trust and assistance at critical moments," Yang Shu said sincerely. "This concubine seeks nothing else." The warm chamber fell into silence for a moment. The fire crackled in the stove, and outside the window, the faint clamor of palace servants preparing for the lantern festival could be heard. "All right, finally," I nodded, "but let me make this clear. I won't do anything that goes against heaven's principles or human decency." A flicker of joy flashed in Yenshu's eyes. "Your Highness need not worry. This concubine feels the same, and so, we reached a delicate agreement. No oaths, no contracts. Just a tacit understanding of mutual benefit." Early February, when the spring chills still lingered, that day, Jet returned from the Hall of Diligent Governance, unusually quiet and withdrawn. During dinner, he only picked at his food a few times before putting down his chopsticks and saying he was full. "What's wrong?" I touched his forehead. "Are you feeling unwell?" Jet shook his head, hesitated for a moment, then suddenly asked, "Mother, why can't I be the crown prince?" My chopsticks nearly slipped from my hand. "Who told you such things?" Today, while reading in the side hall of the Hall of Diligent Governance, I overheard the Grand Tutor speaking with His Majesty. Jet whispered, "They said, it's time to appoint a crown prince early to stabilize the state." They also said, "Although I am the eldest son." But what? I struggled to suppress the storm of emotions within me. "But my birth mother's status is not sufficient." Jet looked at me. "Mother, what does this mean? Why does whether I can become the crown prince have anything to do with you?" A sharp pain pierced my chest. In the previous life, Jet died young and never experienced these harsh realities of the palace. But now, how could I explain to an 11-year-old child that his fate was closely tied to his mother's background? "Jet," I took his hand and sat him down by the window. "Do you know about bees?" "I know. The Grand Tutor said there are queen bees, worker bees, and drones in a beehive." "Yes," I explained softly, "a queen bee is born to be a queen, not because she's smarter or braver than other bees, but simply because that's her birthright. The human world can be like that too. Some people are destined to bear greater responsibilities due to their birth." Jet seemed to half understand. "So, because my mother isn't the empress, I can't be the crown prince?" "Not necessarily." I stroked his hair. "In history, there have been many wise monarchs whose birth mothers were not empresses. What matters is," I cupped his little face in my hands, "no matter what happens in the future, you must always be an upright and kind person. Do you understand?" Jet nodded, then asked again, "Then, does Father Emperor prefer third brother?" My heart tightened. The third prince, the one who ultimately ascended the throne in my past life, was only 10 years old now. Yet already being considered by court officials as a potential heir, the emperor loves all his children equally. I forced a smile and said, "All right, these matters aren't for you to worry about. You have school tomorrow, so rest early." After lulling Jet to sleep, I stood alone in the courtyard, gazing at the star-filled sky. My heart unsettled. In my past life, I resorted to any means to vie for the emperor's favor and noble status, ultimately harming both others and myself. In this life, I had intended to keep to myself and shield Jet from these conflicts, but now it seems, the tree may crave calm, but the wind will not subside. By the end of February, the weather was gradually warming. On this day, when I went to the Palace of Blessing and Peace to pay my respects, the Empress Dowager mentioned, "The Emperor recently inquired about your relationship with Lady WN. My teacup paused in my hand. "What did His Majesty say?" "He said you've always been a solitary figure. Yet lately you've been quite close to Lady WN, and asked if I knew the reason." The Empress Dowager looked at me meaningfully. I set down the teacup. "This concubine and Lady WN merely discuss poetry and literature occasionally, with no deep friendship. Such words may deceive others, but not the Emperor." The Empress Dowager shook her head. "He is inherently suspicious. You have the eldest prince, and now you befriend a favored consort at this time. How could he not doubt you?" I was inwardly startled. Indeed, given the Emperor's temperament, he would surely suspect that my approach to Yangshu was driven by ulterior motives. I was careless. "Your Majesty," I whispered, "please enlighten me." "Empress Dowager, the Emperor detests any collusion between the inner palace and the court." The Empress Dowager said slowly, "If he suspects you befriended Lady WN to advance Jet's career," a chill ran down my spine. This was precisely the true purpose behind my alliance with Yangshu. "I understand, Your Majesty," she replied. I said solemnly, "I will proceed with caution." In early April, explosive news spread throughout the imperial harem. Consort Li's father, Pei Zhenyu, had achieved a great victory in the northwest, annihilating 30,000 enemy troops and capturing their chieftain. This means Consort Li's backing has become even more secure, and it also signifies her imminent return to power. Your Highness, I heard His Majesty is extremely pleased and intends to promote Consort Li in rank, Yan Shuang said with evident concern. I calmly trimmed an orchid plant, my expression serene, as expected. But, Consort Li has always regarded you as a thorn in her side. It's fine, I put down the scissors. Go and invite Lady Wn. When Yang Shu arrived, her expression was also unpleasant. Your Highness has heard, General Pei has achieved a great merit. Amham, I poured her a cup of tea. What are your plans? Yang Shu pondered for a moment. The Pei family is too powerful to confront head-on for now. This concubine plans to temporarily avoid their wise. I nodded. After Consort Li regains favor, her first target will undoubtedly be you. In the coming days, try to go out less and carefully inspect all food and clothing. Yang Shu looked at me gratefully. Thank you for your guidance, Your Highness. She hesitated for a moment. There's one more thing. This concubine has yet to inform His Majesty. What's the matter? This concubine might be with child. My teacup trembled in my hand. Are you certain? Not yet. My monthly cycle is half a month late, and I've been feeling nauseous lately. Yang Shu gently touched her abdomen. Your concubine wishes to wait until it's confirmed before announcing. I pondered for a moment. Keep it quiet for now. If Consort Li finds out you're pregnant, she will surely become even more frantic. Yang Shu nodded. Your concubine understands. I looked at her still flat stomach, my heart filled with indescribable complexity. In my past life, Yang Shu had also been pregnant. But in the end, if history were to repeat itself, should I intervene or remain a bystander? Lady Wn. I solemnly declared. From this day forward, your daily meals will be specially prepared under my supervision. Your clothing and necessities shall also be provided by me first. A flicker of emotion passed through Yan Shu's eyes. Your Highness, no need to say more, I interrupted her. Just consider it for our agreement. After seeing Yang Shu off, I stood by the window in prolonged silence. Consort Li regained favor, Yang Shu became pregnant. And voices advocating for the establishment of a crown prince grew louder in the court. This series of changes would completely alter the dynamics of the imperial harem, and I, who should have been a detached observer in this second life, was already deeply entangled in it. Yan Shuang, I softly instructed. Go to the storeroom and fetch that set of silver needles. Also, from today onward, all food and drink in Jiaohua Palace must be carefully inspected. The 5th day of the 5th month. The Dragon Boat Festival, a banquet was held in the palace to celebrate. I originally didn't want Jet to attend, but the emperor specifically decreed that all the princes must be present. Before leaving, I repeatedly reminded Jet, remember, only eat the food brought from Jiaohua Palace. Politely decline anything offered by others. Your son remembers. Jet nodded obediently. Mother has said it many times. I adjusted his collar, the unease in my heart growing stronger. At the banquet, Yang Shu wore loose palace attire, not yet showing signs of pregnancy, but her face was rosy, and her eyes sparkled with maternal tenderness. Consort Li attended in full regalia, her hair adorned with glittering jewels that shone brightly under the sunlight. She repeatedly toasted the emperor, her words brimming with pride. The emperor, owing to her father's military achievements, treated her with exceptional leniency. Midway through the feast, a young palace maid accidentally spilled a cup of wine on Yang Shu. As Yang Shu rose to change her clothes, I noticed Consort Li exchanging a meaningful glance with her personal maid, Yanxiu. I whispered the instruction, follow them discreetly, don't alert anyone. Yanxiu quietly left the banquet. Shortly after, she hurried back and murmured in my ear, Your Highness, something terrible. Someone has lit musk in the side chamber where Lady Wn is changing. The chopsticks in my hand nearly snapped. Musk. In my past life, Yang Shu's first child was harmed by musk. Where is Lady Wn? This servant reminded her in time, so she didn't enter that room. But, Yanxiu's voice dropped even lower, that palace maid accidentally let it slip. And now the entire banquet knows Lady Wn is with child. My heart sank. Yang Shu's pregnancy was thus forcibly revealed, and at the very moment when Consort Li was at her most triumphant. Sure enough, Upon hearing the news, the emperor was overjoyed and immediately promoted Yang Shu to the rank of WNGU, bestowing countless rewards upon her. Consort Li forced a smile, but the venom in her eyes was impossible to conceal. After the banquet, I managed to evade prying eyes and secretly met with Yang Shu behind the rockery in the Imperial Garden. Today's incident was no accident. Yang Shu's face turned pale. There must be spies planted by Consort Li among my attendants, your personal maid. Fueling, I cut straight to the point. She's Consort Li's person. Yang Shu looked at me in shock. How did your majesty know? Intuition. I brushed it off lightly. The top priority now is to clean up the people around you. Starting today, all your food, drinks, and clothing will be personally arranged by me. Yang Shu gratefully grasped my hand. Your kindness, your highness, is something this concubine will never forget for the rest of her life. No need for thanks, I patted her hand. Remember, from now on, you are ill. Apart from paying daily respects to the Empress, you must claim illness and stay in seclusion at all other times. As for His Majesty, you'll have to figure that out yourself. Yang Shu nodded in understanding. This concubine understands. After returning to the palace, I immediately ordered someone to prepare a set of silver needles and several detoxifying herbs, intending to send them to Yang Shu the next day. Shuang stood by, hesitating to speak. If you have something to say, just say it, I remarked without looking up. Your Highness, Shuang hesitated. Why are you so concerned about Consort WN? If it's for the sake of the eldest prince, there's no need. Shuang, I interrupted her. Some things don't necessarily require a reason. Just as I harmed people without reason in my past life, in this life, I want to save people without needing a reason either. On the 7th day of the 5th month, the nightmare descended. I was writing when Yanqiu rushed in frantically. Your Highness, the eldest prince has fainted in the study. My vision darkened. In my past life, Jet had died young. Could it be that even after being reborn, I still couldn't change this fate? Summon the imperial physician. My voice was hoarse as I said, go report to the Hall of Diligent Governance. By the time I rushed to the imperial study, Jet had already been moved to a side chamber, lying pale on the couch with blue-tinged lips. Grand Tutor Zhong was pacing anxiously nearby. What's going on? I threw myself beside the couch and grasped Jet's icy little hand, reporting to the virtuous consort. Grand Tutor Zhong's voice trembled. The Crown Prince was perfectly fine just moments ago, then suddenly complained of dizziness, and then he collapsed. I checked Jet's pulse. It was faint and weak, intermittent at best. This was unmistakably a sign of poisoning. What did he consume today? I demanded sharply. Oh, only the tea provided in the study. I grabbed the teacup from the table and brought it close to my nose. A faint scent of bitter almonds. Yes, it was arsenic, the same poison Consort Li had used to kill Consort Liu in my past life. Quick, boil some mung bean and licorice soup, I shouted at Yanqiu, and fetch the white jade vial from the bottom layer of my dressing case. By the time the imperial physician arrived, I had already forced Jet to swallow the antidote pills I had prepared myself. I had secretly made them after my rebirth, just in preparation for this very day. Your Majesty, the imperial physician hesitated when he saw me administering medicine without authorization. It's arsenic, I stated directly. The dosage isn't large, but Jet is too young to withstand it. Quickly apply the acupuncture. The physician was astonished by my diagnosis, but given the urgency, he immediately began the acupuncture treatment. By the time the emperor arrived upon hearing the news, Jet had just coughed up a mouthful of black blood, and his breathing gradually stabilized. What's going on? The emperor's face turned ashen. The imperial physician knelt down. Your Majesty, the crown prince has been poisoned, thanks to the timely discovery by the virtuous consort and the use of the right medicine. His life was saved. The emperor's gaze shifted to me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. I had no time to explain, only clutching Jet's hand tightly, afraid he might vanish if I let go. Investigate, the emperor said sternly, investigate thoroughly for me. After Jet was out of danger, I instructed Yanqiu and Shuang to guard him without leaving his side. While I headed straight to Jiangyun Palace, Consort Li was admiring flowers when I barged in. Feigning surprise, she said, "Oh, Sister Virtuous Consort, what brings you here? It was you who poisoned him." I cut her off directly. my voice as cold as ice. Consort Li's smile remained unchanged. Sister, what do you mean by that? The Crown Prince's poisoning has also deeply saddened me. The eunuch from Jiangyun Palace added arsenic to the tea. I took a step forward. Consort Li, do you dare to act but not take responsibility? Consort Li narrowed her eyes and waved her hand, dismissing all the palace attendants. When only the two of us remained in the hall, the fake smile on her face vanished instantly. So what if I did it? Do you have any proof? I clenched my fists tightly, my nails digging deep into my palms. In my past life, I would have retaliated without hesitation using even more ruthless methods. But now, as I looked at Consort Li's smug face, I suddenly calmed down. No evidence, I said calmly. But I warn you, Consort Li, if Jet suffers even the slightest harm again, I promise the Pei family will be buried with you. Consort Li laughed. With what power? My father is a high-ranking court official with illustrious military achievements. Even the emperor shows him respect. What are you? Your father's achievements overshadow the sovereign. I whispered. Do you think the emperor truly harbors no resentment in his heart? Consort Li's face darkened slightly. You dare to sow discord. I don't need to sow discord. I turned and walked toward the palace gates. Just wait and see how long the Pei family's glory will last. As I stepped out of Jiangyun Palace, my legs gave way, forcing me to lean against the palace wall to steady myself. Anger and lingering fear surged over me like a tidal wave, nearly drowning me. So close I had almost lost Jet again. Your Majesty, Yanxiu hurried over. The Crown Prince has woken up and is clamoring to see you. I took a deep breath. Barely managing to calm my emotions, returned to the palace. Inside the Hall of Diligent Governance, the atmosphere was as heavy as iron. The emperor sat high upon the dragon throne, his face so dark it seemed water could drip from it. I knelt below, listening as Li Dequan reported the investigation's findings. Arsenic was indeed detected in the tea. Upon investigation, the young eunuch responsible for serving tea that day had only been transferred to the imperial study 2 months prior. He was from the same hometown as the chief eunuch of Jiangyun Palace. And what else? The emperor asked coldly. That young eunuch drowned himself in a well last night. The emperor suddenly slammed the table and stood up. What a perfect case of dead men tell no tales. I knelt quietly, sneering inwardly. Consort Li's methods were indeed thorough. She had severed all traces just at the right moment. Noble consort, the emperor suddenly asked me. How could you tell at a glance that it was arsenic? I was prepared. When I was young, I once saw a servant in my family accidentally consume arsenic, with symptoms similar to Jet's. Over the years, in my spare time, I've read some medical books, so I recognized it. The emperor stared at me for a long time, as if judging the truth of my words. Finally, he nodded. This time, we owe it to you. He turned to Li Dequan. Consort Li failed to discipline her subordinates, resulting in harm to the prince. She is to forfeit half a year's salary and be confined to her quarters for 3 months. Is this all? My heart turned ice cold. My son nearly lost his life. Yet the murderer receives only such a light punishment. Your Majesty, I couldn't help but look up. Jet, I know. The emperor said. The emperor interrupted me. But her father has just rendered great service, and the court is in urgent need of talent. I lowered my eyes and fell silent. Indeed. In the heart of an emperor, how could a son's life compare to the stability of the realm? In my past life, I failed to see this clearly, but in this life, I understand it all too well. Noble consort, the emperor's voice softened slightly. I will assign more guards to protect Jet. Additionally, for your meritorious service in saving him, you are hereby promoted to imperial noble consort. Noble consort, I nearly laughed aloud, using rank to compensate for the loss of a child. Is this what the emperor calls his favor? Your servant, thanks your majesty for your grace. I mechanically kowtowed, my heart now devoid of ripples. The decree promoting me to noble consort spread throughout the harem, yet I felt no joy whatsoever, though Jet was out of danger. His body remained weak and required long-term recuperation. I kept vigil by his bedside day and night, personally brewing medicine and feeding him, terrified that the slightest mishap might occur again. Mother. I'm fine now, Jet smiled weakly. Please don't cry. Only then did I realize my tears had fallen on his face. I quickly wiped them away. Mother isn't crying, it's just, some dust got in my eyes. On the 5th day, Dunning suddenly arrived at Johua Palace in person. Sister, she looked at my haggard face. Her eyes filled with pity. You've had a hard time these past few days. I forced a smile. Thank you for your concern, sister. Jet is much better now. Dunning dismissed her attendants and personally checked on Jet's condition. Then, she took me aside to the outer room. I know who poisoned him. I suddenly looked up. Does elder sister have evidence? No, Dunning smiled bitterly. But I'm not foolish. Consort Lee has always seen Jet as a thorn in her side. And now with noble Lady WN pregnant, she's even more desperate. I remained silent. Dunning continued. I have already issued orders that from now on, all meals for the imperial princes will be prepared by designated personnel, with every dish tested for poison. Additionally, she lowered her voice, I've also increased the guards around noble Lady WN. I looked at her in astonishment. In her previous life, Dunning was indecisive and never dared to confront Consort Lee directly. How could she be so decisive and swift in this life? Sister, why? Because I am the Empress. A glint of determination flashed in Dunning's eyes. Protecting the imperial heirs is my duty. Besides, she held my hand and said, I've watched Jet grow up too. My heart warmed, and I nearly shed tears. In our past lives, we fought to the death. But in this life, we stand together for a common goal. Fate is truly wondrous. Thank you, sister, I said sincerely. Dunning shook her head. No need for thanks. I've already requested permission for Jet to move to the side hall of Fengyi Palace for a while after he recovers. It's close to the Hall of Diligent Governance, so the Emperor can visit him often, and it's safer there. I understand her intention. Fengyi Palace is the residence of the Empress. Even the arrogant Consort Lee wouldn't dare to make any moves there. I don't know how to thank you, elder sister. Take good care of Jet. Dunning said gently, he's a good child. In the future, he will surely achieve great things. Her words carried hidden meanings, and I understood them well. In early June, as Jet's health gradually improved, he moved to a side chamber of Fengyi Palace. When Yangshu paid a secret visit, I was packing Jet's clothes. Your Highness. After bowing, she asked with concern, has the Crown Prince fully recovered? Much better now. I gestured for her to sit down. Thanks to Her Majesty the Queen's care, Yangshu nodded. Her Majesty the Queen has been particularly attentive to me recently as well. She gently caressed her abdomen. If this child can be born safely, we will never forget the great kindness of the Empress and Your Highness. I looked at her still flat stomach. My heart filled with mixed emotions. In the previous life, Yangshu's first child was not able to survive. In this life, can I change this outcome? Consort Lee will not let this go easily. I spoke bluntly. Now that you're carrying a child, you must be even more careful. I understand, Your Highness. A flash of determination crossed Yangshu's eyes. This poisoning incident with the Crown Prince has made me see clearly how vicious Consort Lee truly is. Rest assured. Your Highness, I will never repeat past mistakes. After a moment's thought, I retrieved a small box from the cabinet. These are some pregnancy-nourishing pills I made myself. Take one every 3 days. They'll strengthen the fetal qi and provide some protection against common toxins. Yangshu accepted them solemnly. Your Highness is even skilled in medicine. I only know a little about it, I said lightly. Remember, don't eat anything given by anyone except what the Empress and I provide. This concubine will keep it in mind. After seeing off Yangshu, I stood by the window in prolonged silence. From the moment I was reborn, I only wanted to stay away from conflicts and keep Jet safe. Yet now, unwittingly, I find myself deeply entangled, forming an alliance with Yangshu and Dunning to stand against Consort Lee. How strange fate is. Enemies from my past life have become allies in this one, and former obsessions have transformed into present-day protection. Perhaps this is the true meaning of rebirth. Not just changing the outcome, but changing oneself. In early July, a memorial from the northwest shook the entire court. How dare Pei Zhenyu use diligent day and night to describe his own merits? The Empress Dowager slammed the teacup heavily onto the table, sneering repeatedly. So he's comparing himself to Zhuge Liang now. I sat quietly in the lower seat, gently massaging the Empress Dowager's shoulders. This scene had played out in my past life as well. Pei Zhenyu's arrogant memorial marked the beginning of the Pei family's downfall. What was the Emperor's reaction? The Empress Dowager asked Aunt Sueha beside her. His Majesty was furious and tore up the memorial right in court. Aunt Sueha whispered, "An imperial edict has been issued reprimanding Pei Zhenyu, summoning him back to the capital to report on his duties." The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful glance. "Nianqing, what do you think?" Without pausing in my task, I replied, "Your servant is foolish and ignorant of court affairs. However, those whose achievements overshadow their sovereign have rarely met a good end since ancient times." The Empress Dowager nodded in satisfaction. "You do see things clearly." She patted my hand and asked, "How has Consort Li been lately?" "She's been much more subdued since being confined to her quarters," I answered truthfully. "However, but what? This concubine has heard that she secretly sent someone to deliver a letter to the northwest." The Empress Dowager's eyes flashed with sharp insight. "Is the information reliable?" "It was Consort Wn who told me," I said softly. "She has spies planted by Consort Li in her palace, and in turn, she has also placed someone in Jiangyun Palace." The Empress Dowager chuckled lightly. "This Consort Wn, she's quite resourceful." After a moment of thought, she said, "Have her continue to keep watch and report any movement to me immediately." "I understand, Your Majesty." As I left the Palace of Blessed Tranquility, I saw Li Dequan from a distance leading several young eunuchs hurriedly heading toward the Hall of Diligent Governance, carrying a stack of memorials in their hands. Judging by the thickness, there must have been quite a few petitions denouncing Pei Zhenyu in today's court session. Upon returning to the Palace of Radiant Splendor, Jet was reviewing his studies. Since the poisoning incident, he had grown noticeably thinner. But his gaze had become even more resolute. "Mother," he set down the book and came forward. "How is grandmother's health?" "The Empress Dowager is well and even asked about you." I patted his head. "How are your studies?" Grand Tutor Zhong said I've made great progress. Jet's eyes sparkled. "Today, Father Emperor came to the study and praised my essay." My heart warmed. "By the way," Jet suddenly lowered his voice, "I overheard Father Emperor speaking with Minister Zhong. It seems they're planning to deal with General Pei." My heart skipped a beat. "What else did you hear?" "They say General Pei is domineering and shows no respect for His Majesty." Jet asked in confusion. "Mother, didn't General Pei achieve many military merits? Why is His Majesty displeased?" After a moment of contemplation, I said softly, "Jet, remember your mother's words. No matter how great the achievements, a subject remains a subject. Forgetting one's place is the path to disaster." Jet nodded obediently. In mid-July, Yang Shu suddenly paid a secret visit. "Your Highness." Her face was pale. "Something has happened." I dismissed the attendants. "Speak slowly." 2 days ago, Physician Ju took my pulse and said, I might be carrying twins. Yang Shu's voice trembled. "In the imperial family, this is considered an ominous sign. If word gets out." My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, Yang Shu's first child was lost to musk poisoning, so she never faced this dilemma. Twins are indeed seen as ill-omened in the royal family. At best, losing favor. At worst, I dared not think further. Is Physician Ju reliable? He is my trusted confidant, and for now, it has been kept secret. Yang Shu bit her lip. But as the months pass, it will become impossible to hide. After a moment of thought, I said, there are 2 options. One is to use medicine to naturally shrink one fetus, ensuring the health of the other child. The other is to find a way to conceal it until the time of delivery, then make arrangements. Tears welled up in Yang Shu's eyes. I can't bear to lose either one. I understand her feelings. In my past life, although I never truly loved the Emperor, my maternal love for Jet was genuine. No one understands a mother's emotions toward her unborn child better than I do. Then we'll choose the second path, I said decisively. From today onward, wear loose clothing. I will prepare some medicinal meals to control the baby's size, making your belly appear no larger than a single pregnancy. Yang Shu gratefully grasped my hand. Your Highness's great kindness. Don't thank me yet, I said gravely. This path is fraught with great risks. If discovered, it would be the crime of deceiving the Emperor. This concubine understands, Yang Shu said resolutely. For the sake of the child, this concubine is willing to take the risk. I nodded. Also, we must arrange reliable personnel for the production. I will personally be there, Your Highness. Yang Shu looked at me in shock. This is too dangerous. If something goes wrong, you will also be implicated. I chuckled lightly. Don't worry, I have experience. In my previous life, Though I never bore twins myself, I've witnessed countless difficult births. Now, let me take your pulse." Yang Shu obediently extended her wrist, after careful examination. I found her pulse to be smooth and strong, indeed indicative of twins. Though her qi and blood were slightly weak, you need to nourish your qi and blood, but not excessively, lest the fetuses grow too large. Remember, apart from Imperial Physician Ju and myself, no third person must know the truth. Not even the Emperor or the Empress. Yang Shu bowed deeply. This concubine will remember. At the end of July, the Emperor suddenly arrived at Jiaohua Palace. "Your Majesty, may you be blessed." I rose in surprise to greet him. Since being promoted to noble consort, the Emperor had visited even less frequently. Perhaps feeling he had already rewarded me enough. "Rise." The Emperor seemed to be in a good mood. "Where's Jet?" "He's studying in the study," I replied. "Shall I summon him back?" The Emperor waved his hand. "No need, I came to see you." He sat down and accepted the tea offered by the palace maid. I recently read Jet's article, and it was quite insightful. Especially the suggestions on managing the Yellow River. Even the Grand Tutor praised them. "Your Majesty flatters me too much," I replied modestly. "Jet is merely an armchair strategist." "No, he has talent." The Emperor's eyes gleamed with an unusual light. "I intend to let him begin handling some simple state affairs." My heart jolted. In the previous life, Jet naturally never had this opportunity. Yet now, the Emperor was actually proposing to involve Jet in court politics. Was this a blessing or a curse? "Your Majesty, Jet is only 11 years old." The Emperor waved it off. "He is my eldest son and should shoulder great responsibilities early." I remained silent for a moment before whispering softly, "This humble concubine only wishes for Jet to grow up safely and peacefully." The Emperor frowned. "Noble consort, you've always been perceptive. How could you be so short-sighted in this matter? If Jet were to remain merely an idle prince, how would he fare when the new sovereign ascends the throne?" A chill ran through my heart. The Emperor's words were clearly hinting he had considered the possibility of establishing Jet as the crown prince. This humble concubine is only concerned that he is still too young to bear such burdens. "What are you afraid of when I am here?" The Emperor softened his voice. "A rare occurrence. I will personally guide him. You only need to be a good mother to him." I bowed my head in agreement. But my heart was filled with mixed emotions. If Jet were truly drawn into the struggle for succession, the path ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with danger. Yet, if I shielded him too much, I feared he might lose the ability to protect himself. After the Emperor left, I immediately sent someone to summon Jet back. "Mother." Jet rushed in excitedly. "Your son composed a poem today, and Father Emperor praised it several times." I pulled him to sit down. "Jet, your mother has something to ask you. If Father Emperor were to have you start learning to handle court affairs, would you be willing?" Jet's eyes lit up. "Really, your son would be willing? Do you know what this means?" I asked solemnly. "It will be arduous, and also very dangerous." "I know, Mother." Jet unexpectedly showed maturity. The Grand Tutor once said, "When heaven is about to confer a great responsibility on someone, it first tests their resolve with hardship." "I am not afraid of hardship." He hesitated for a moment. "Is Mother worried about what happened last time?" My heart ached, and I pulled him into my arms. "Your mother only wishes for your safety and happiness." "I understand, Mother." Jet leaned against me. "But I also want to be like Father, to serve the nation and its people, to achieve something meaningful." As I looked into his determined eyes, it suddenly dawned on me. My child had grown up. No longer the little one who needed my constant protection, but a young man with his own aspirations. "All right," I gently kissed his forehead. "Since you've made your decision, Mother supports you. But promise me, no matter what difficulties you encounter, you'll tell me." "All right," Jet nodded vigorously. "I promise." "Mother." In early August, Pei Zhenyu was summoned back to the capital. When the news arrived, I was playing chess with the Empress Dowager. Pei Zhenyu knelt outside the Qianyuan gate for 2 hours yesterday, yet the Emperor refused to see him. The Empress Dowager placed a chess piece and remarked casually. I feigned surprise. "Is His Majesty that furious?" "More than that," the Empress Dowager sneered. "Someone has already accused Pei Zhenyu of embezzling military funds and forming cliques for personal gain. The Emperor has ordered Prince Rui to investigate thoroughly." My heart skipped a beat. In my past life, The downfall of the Pei family began with these very accusations. Does Consort Li know? Of course she does, the Empress Dowager said meaningfully. I heard the Jiangyun Palace has been replacing porcelain quite frequently these days. I remained silent, no matter how arrogant Consort Li was. She merely relied on the power of the Pei family. If the Pei family fell, her downfall would not be far behind. Nianqing, the Empress Dowager suddenly asked, if Consort Li loses her influence, who do you think is most suitable to take over the management of the 6 palaces? My hand paused on the chess piece. Naturally, Her Majesty the Empress. Duaning is too soft by nature. The Empress Dowager shook her head. If it weren't for your support behind the scenes all these years, she would have long been suffocated by Consort Li. My heart trembled. Was the Empress Dowager hinting that I should take over the authority of the 6 palaces? Your servant is of limited talent and shallow knowledge. Enough. The Empress Dowager interrupted me. I know your ambitions lie elsewhere, however. She looked at me meaningfully. Some responsibilities cannot be avoided simply because you wish to evade them. As I left the Palace of Blessed Tranquility, my mind was filled with countless thoughts. The Empress Dowager was right. With Jet gaining increasing attention, it was no longer possible for me to remain completely detached. Since I couldn't avoid it, perhaps I should take the initiative myself. On my way back to the palace, I coincidentally met Yang Shu, who had just left the Hall of Diligent Governance. Your humble concubine pays respects to the noble consort. She performed the ritual with perfect etiquette. Yet an unusual gleam flickered in her eyes. There's no need for such formality, Lady Wn. I feigned indifference. How is His Majesty? His Majesty has just finished reviewing the memorials and has retired to rest. Yang Shu lowered her voice. Your Highness, urgent news. His Majesty has just issued an edict, stripping Pei Zhenyu of his position as General of the Nation and demoting him to General of Jiangning. My heart skipped a beat. This came even sooner than in my past life. It seems His Majesty's patience with Pei Zhenyu has reached its limit. Does Consort Li know yet? She probably doesn't know yet. A hint of cunning flashed in Yanshu's eyes. This concubine has already arranged for someone to ensure that when Consort Li finds out, there will be quite a spectacle. I gave her a warning glance. Don't go too far. I understand, Your Majesty, Yang Shu responded obediently, but the gleam in her eyes told me she already had a plan. On the 15th day of the 8th month, the Mid-Autumn Festival arrived. The palace hosted a grand banquet to celebrate, but Consort Li claimed illness and did not attend. Ever since the news of Pei Zhenyu's demotion arrived, she had secluded herself, leaving the Crimson Cloud Palace shrouded in gloom. At the banquet, Empress Duaning looked in excellent spirits, handling the grand occasion with effortless ease. Yang Shu, due to unstable pregnancy signs, was also absent, which eased my worries somewhat. After the banquet concluded, Duaning deliberately kept me behind. Sister, accompany me for a walk, she said. The moonlight cascaded like water over the pebbled paths of the Imperial Garden. Duaning dismissed her attendants and walked side by side with me. Nianqing. She suddenly called my name directly. Thank you for all these years. I looked at her in surprise. Sister, why do you say that? I know that without your efforts behind the scenes, I would have long lost my position as Empress. Dunning gazed at the bright moon. In the past, I was solely devoted to the Emperor, blind to the dangers of the harem. Until what? Until I saw you. Juanan turned to me. You neither strive nor contend, yet handle everything with thoroughness. Indifferent to fame and fortune, yet no one dares to bully you. Only now do I understand that a woman can live like this, not wholly dependent on a man, yet still live a splendid life. In her past life, Juanan lived entirely for love until her death, but in this life, influenced by me, she has found her own worth. You flatter me, elder sister, I said softly. This humble consort is merely accustomed to idleness. Dun Ning laughed. You, always so modest. She then spoke earnestly. This palace has sought you today to discuss matters of great importance, with the Pei family's imminent fall from power and Consort Li's downfall. The harem's landscape will undergo drastic changes. This palace wishes to request your assistance in managing the affairs of the 6 palaces. I looked at her in astonishment. Assisting in managing the 6 palaces meant immense power, but also immense responsibility. I fear I may not be capable. Don't be so quick to refuse. Dunning grasped my hand, not for my sake, but for Jet's. He's growing up day by day. Without power in your hands, how can you protect him? I remained silent for a moment. Dunning was right. In the depths of the palace, power was the best shield. If I wanted to protect Jet, I couldn't hide behind others forever. Your servant obeys the decree. Dunning smiled with relief. Wonderful, with us sisters united in heart. The inner palace will surely remain stable. Sisters united in heart. There was a time when we were sworn enemies, yet now we've become true sisters. Fate truly is mysterious. On the way back to the palace, I looked up at the star-filled sky, feeling an unprecedented calm in my heart. The grudges and passions of my past life seemed to have vanished with the wind. In this lifetime, I have finally found my rightful place, not as a power-hungry empress, nor as a concubine who endured in silence, but as a mother, friend, and sister with the strength to protect those I love. Jet's future, Yenshu's child, Duanin's trust, these have become the new meaning of my life. As for the emperor, he no longer holds any importance in my heart. In early September, the news of Pei Genyu's dismissal and investigation struck the court like a thunderbolt. That day, I was teaching Jet to identify medicinal herbs when Yenshio rushed in. Your Highness, something terrible has happened. General Pei has been escorted back to the capital and imprisoned in the Ministry of Justice. My hand holding the medicine grinder paused slightly, faster and harsher than in the previous life. What's the reaction from the Crimson Cloud Palace? Consort Li is making a scene demanding to see the emperor, but Li Dequan stopped her outside the Hall of Diligent Governance. Yenshio lowered her voice. I heard she smashed quite a few things after returning to her palace, and even took her anger out on several palace maids. I sighed softly, feeling a pang of sorrow. No matter how arrogant Consort Li may be, she is ultimately just another prisoner in this deep palace, living by clinging to the power of her father and brothers. Mother, Consort Li she. Jet looked up at me with his little face. I patted his head. She has lost something important. Jet, remember, in this life, one cannot place all their hopes on external things, whether it's power, wealth, or the favor of others. They can all vanish in an instant. Only the strength within oneself is a true reliance. Jet nodded earnestly. He might not fully understand the painful lessons behind these truths yet, but one day, he will. Your Highness. Yang Shuang rushed in suddenly, flustered. Something's happened at the Shuyu studio. Noble Consort WN is suffering from severe abdominal pain. Physician Ju says it's poisoning. The medicine roller in my hand clattered to the ground. It's finally happened. Consort Li's desperate counterattack. Prepare the sedan chair, I sternly commanded. Jet, stay in the palace and don't go anywhere. The Shuyu study was in chaos. Yang Shu lay pale on the bed, his forehead covered in cold sweat, his hands gripping the bedding tightly. Imperial physician Ju was administering acupuncture, his expression terrifyingly grave. What happened? I rushed to the bedside. It's oleander powder. Imperial physician Ju's voice trembled. It was mixed into Consort Wan's fetal tonic. Fortunately, it was discovered in time. Otherwise, I immediately grabbed Yang Shu's wrist to check her pulse. The pulse was slippery and scattered, a clear sign of poisoning, though not yet life-threatening. The heartbeats of the two fetuses in her womb still sounded strong. Fetch the detoxifying powder from my palace, I shouted at Yen Shuang. And the silver needle kit. Hurry. Yen Shuang dashed away. I turned to Imperial physician Ju. Did you induce vomiting? Already induced vomiting, not enough. I immediately checked Yang Shu's pupils. Oleander poison has entered the heart meridian. We must protect the heart pulse immediately. I took out a small bottle from the pouch at my waist and poured out 2 pills. These are my own concoction, containing rhinoceros horn, musk, and bezoar. Imperial physician Ju's eyes widened. But musk is harmful to the fetus. A small amount won't matter. Saving lives comes first, I said, prying open Yang Shu's mouth and forcing the pills inside. Not long after taking the medicine, Yang Shu's breathing gradually stabilized, but she remained unconscious. Save the child, she murmured unconsciously. I held her hand and said, don't be afraid, both you and the child will be fine. Yen Shuang brought the silver needles and antidote powder, and I personally administered the acupuncture to Yang Shu. In my previous life, I studied various poisons and antidotes to compete for favor, never expecting to use them to save lives in this life. 2 hours later, Yang Shu was finally out of danger. Imperial physician Zhu wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Thanks to the noble consort's miraculous healing skills, who poisoned her?" I asked coldly. It was Yunxiang. By consort Li's side, a young palace maid knelt down and tearfully confessed. She pretended to be from the Imperial Household Department to deliver medicine for stabilizing the pregnancy. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Just as I suspected, Consort Li, driven to desperation, actually dared to harm the Imperial heir. Take good care of your mistress. I stood up. Notify me immediately if anything unusual occurs. Leaving Shuyu's study, I headed straight for Jiangyun Palace. It was time to bring this to an end. The gates of Jiangyun Palace were tightly shut, but they couldn't block out the sounds of shattering and wailing from within. I signaled the guards not to announce my arrival and pushed the door open directly. The hall was in complete disarray, with Consort Li standing amidst a pile of shattered porcelain, her once beautiful face now twisted into something terrifying. Shen Yanqing. She turned and saw me, her eyes shooting venomous glares. "Here to mock me? I have no such leisure," I said coldly. "Consort Li, you ordered someone to poison Lady WN. The evidence is irrefutable." Consort Li laughed wildly. "Evidence? That wench is still alive. What a pity." She suddenly grabbed a vase and smashed it on the ground. "With the Pei family fallen, what do I have left to fear? Have you not considered Pei Lanshan? The Pei family may be ruined, but your niece is only 12 this year. Can you bear to drag her down with you?" Consort Li shuddered violently. How do you know about Lanshan?" "I know far more than you can imagine." I took a step forward. "Stop this. The Emperor, in consideration of the Pei family's past merits, will not take your life. But if anything happens to Consort WN or the royal heir, ha ha ha." Consort Li suddenly burst into mad laughter. "Shen Yanqing, oh Shen Yanqing, you've pretended to be noble your whole life, and now you finally show your true colors. Is it worth it? For that Yang Shu?" "It's not for her," I said calmly. "It's for the innocent child." The laughter of Consort Li abruptly ceased. She stared at me with an inscrutable mix of emotions in her eyes. "Do you know what? What I despise most about you is this very demeanor, forever aloof, forever untouched by dust." Staggering closer, she hissed, "You think you've won? Let me tell you, in these palace depths, there are no winners." As I met her frenzied gaze, a sudden wave of pity washed over me. The Consort Li of my past life had been the same, marching toward destruction in utter despair. "Pei Lanshan will be taken care of," I whispered softly. "At least, find her a good family." Consort Li froze, the madness in her eyes gradually turning into confusion, then deep exhaustion. She slowly slid to the ground, like a woman who had suddenly aged. "Why?" she murmured. "Why did it have to be you?" I didn't answer, turning to leave. Behind me, Consort Li's heart-wrenching sobs echoed through the gilded cage. Lingering long after I was gone, 3 days later, an imperial decree was issued. Consort Pei of the Li Palace, for plotting against the imperial heir, was stripped of her title and reduced to commoner status. Confined to the cold palace, Pei Zhenyu was sentenced to immediate execution, while the entire Pei family was subjected to confiscation of property and exile, with only underage females pardoned. On the 10th day of the 10th month, Yang Shu went into labor. That day, the autumn sky was clear and crisp, and I arrived early at the Shuyu studio to oversee matters. "How is the situation?" Juanin asked nervously. Addressing Imperial Physician Zhu, reporting to Her Majesty the Queen, Consort Wan's fetal position is correct, and she should be able to deliver smoothly. Imperial Physician Zhu wiped his sweat. However what? I took over the conversation. "However, Consort Wan's constitution is weak, so the labor might take longer. Your Majesty need not worry." Duaning nodded and pulled me aside. "Nianqing, if it truly is twins, I have already thought of a solution," I whispered. "We can say the second child is a divine blessing bestowed by heaven, brought forth by Her Majesty the Empress's sincere prayers. According to custom, the child could be raised under the Empress's name." Duaning's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant idea. It not only resolves the taboo but also—" Her words were interrupted by Yenshu's cry of pain. The midwife shouted, "The head is crowning, noble consort, push." After a full 4 hours, a loud infant's cry pierced the night sky. "It's a little prince," the midwife announced joyfully. Just as everyone was about to relax, Yangshu suddenly gripped the sheets. There's another one. Imperial physician Ju's face changed dramatically. Quick, prepare. The second one is coming, after another hour of arduous struggle. The second child was finally born safely, a little princess, a dragon phoenix twins. The midwife exclaimed in astonishment, "This is an extraordinary auspicious sign." Juanin knelt and kowtowed in gratitude to the heavens. This is the Emperor's benevolence moving heaven and earth, bestowing this auspicious sign upon our great Xia. When the news reached the Hall of Diligent Governance, the Emperor was overjoyed and immediately issued an edict promoting Yangshu to the rank of WN consort, granting her 1,000 taels of gold. As for the taboo of twins, under the auspicious notion of dragon phoenix twins, no one dared mention it again. Looking at the exhausted yet blissful Yangshu and the two healthy newborns by her side, a great weight lifted from my heart. The tragedy of the past life had been completely rewritten in this one. Spring of the 10th year of Kang Yuan, Imperial Garden. I sat in the pavilion, watching the children playing not far away. 16-year-old Jet was teaching the 5-year-old twins of Consort WN how to write, his expression earnest and gentle. Sister seems to be in good spirits. Juanin approached gracefully and sat down beside me. Sister, I stood up to greet her, but she pulled me back down. You're too polite. Juanin shook her head with a smile. Look how happy the children are playing. I nodded. Over the past 5 years, the imperial harem had been surprisingly peaceful. Consort Li spent the rest of her days in the cold palace, and the other concubines all behaved themselves. Juanin managed the harem with perfect order, while Yangshu and I became her most capable assistants. I heard the Emperor tested Jet on his studies yesterday and praised him again. Juanin asked. Amham, I smiled. The Emperor has started teaching him to review memorials. Juanin looked at me meaningfully. The voices advocating for naming an heir are rising again. My expression remained unchanged. Jet is still young. There's no hurry. Juanin shook her head. Anyone else would be in a hurry to push their son into power. Only you are so indifferent. Not indifference, but clarity. The power games I couldn't see through in my past life, I've long understood in this one. The throne isn't necessarily a blessing. Peace is what truly matters. By the way, Juanin suddenly lowered her voice. Is Consort WN pregnant again? I nodded. 2 months along. Physician Ju says the pregnancy is very stable. How wonderful. A flicker of envy passed through Juanin's eyes, but she soon relaxed. I have no such fortune, unable to have a child of my own, but now with Chengqing and Anning, I am content. Chengqing and Anning are the formal names of Yangshu's twin children. Yangshu was grateful for the protection I and the Empress had provided, and she voluntarily requested that Prince Chengqing be raised under Duan Ning's name, giving the childless Duan Ning someone to rely on. Meanwhile, the little princess, Ning, was to be raised by Yangshu herself. Sister treats them as her own, which is their good fortune, I said sincerely. Duan Ning patted my hand and said, between us sisters, there's no need for such words. Sisters, yes. Now we are truly sisters. The grudges of our past lives have long since vanished with the wind. Mother Empress, noble consort. Little Anning came skipping over, holding a freshly picked flower in her hand. This is for you. Juanin happily picked her up. Anning is so sweet. Watching this scene, my heart was filled with warmth. In my past life, Anning had never been born, but in this life, she has become everyone's little joy. The changes of fate can be so beautiful. In the autumn of the 15th year of Kang Yuan, the Emperor fell seriously ill. That day, when I went to the Hall of Diligent Governance to pay my respects, the Emperor was reclining on the couch, his complexion ashen, yet his gaze remained sharp. The noble consort has arrived. He weakly waved his hand. Sit. I bowed and sat on the stool he indicated. Your Majesty looks better than yesterday. My health is my own concern. The Emperor coughed twice. Time is running short. I remained silent. In my past life, the Emperor had also fallen gravely ill around this time. But back then I had been deposed to the cold palace and never had the chance to see him. My beloved, he suddenly called me by my pet name. There's a question I've always wanted to ask you. Your Majesty, please speak. All these years, why have you never competed for favor? The Emperor looked directly into my eyes. I've seen too many women resort to all sorts of tricks for favor, but you have always remained indifferent. Why, I didn't expect him to ask this. After a moment of contemplation, I replied softly, Your Majesty, I believe the love of an emperor is like flowers in a mirror or the moon reflected in water, something that cannot be forced. It's better to hold on to one's true heart and live more freely. The emperor smiled bitterly and sighed, Jet, I am very pleased with him, he is kind and wise, and will surely be a wise ruler. My heart trembled. Was this a clear hint that Jet would be named the crown prince? Your Majesty, I know you don't want him involved in the strife, the emperor interrupted me, but the great Xia Empire needs a ruler like him. He struggled to sit up. Nian Qing, promise me, if anything happens to me, you must guide Jet well and help him, become a benevolent ruler. I solemnly knelt down. This concubine will remember. The emperor wearily closed his eyes. You may withdraw. Let Dunning and the children come in. I bowed and exited, encountering the waiting Dunning, YA with grave NSH. And the children at the door. Jet was already 21 years old, tall and graceful, with features that bore both the emperor's determination and my gentleness. Mother, he looked at me with concern. Father, I straightened his collar. Go on, your father is waiting. Watching their figures disappear into the hall of diligent governance, I suddenly realized, this lifetime, I've finally obtained everything I yearned for but couldn't attain in my past life, my child's safe upbringing, genuine friendships and inner peace. As for those past grudges and entanglements, they no longer matter. In the spring of the 16th year of Kang Yuan, the emperor passed away, and Jet ascended the throne, changing the era name to Jingming. At the coronation ceremony of the new emperor, I looked at Jet in his dragon robe, my heart filled with pride and serenity. Mother Empress, after the ceremony, the young emperor called to me, Your son feels somewhat uneasy. I straightened his crown for him. Remember your mother's words, as a ruler, you must base yourself on benevolence and virtue, putting the people first. As long as you hold the people in your heart, there is nothing to fear. Jet nodded solemnly. Your son will remember Mother Empress's teachings. Dunning was honored as the Empress Dowager, while I was honored as the Holy Mother Empress Dowager. Yang Sh was elevated to Noble Consort Dowager, her son Chongqing was infeft as a prince, and little Awith Macron Nnng was also granted the title of Princess Awith Macron Nnng the eldest. The imperial court and the inner palace were filled with peace and harmony. Those bloody struggles seemed like distant memories. On this day, as I was drinking tea in the garden of Jingfu Palace, Yang Shu brought Anning to pay their respects. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager. She performed the ceremonial greeting with perfect etiquette, yet a mischievous smile flickered in her eyes. How have you been lately? Very well. I smiled and pulled little Anning closer. You've grown taller again. Anning nestled against me coquettishly. Mother, Anning wants to hear a story. What story would you like to hear? I want to hear the stories of your youth. Yang Shu and I exchanged a knowing smile. Stories from my youth. That's a very, very long tale, about rebirth. About redemption, about how a woman let go of hatred and found true happiness. The events of my past life felt like a nightmare. In this life, I have lived well.